So in the cold open of last podcast, you said you were going to watch my video. And even though we have briefly spoken about this, very briefly, don't worry, I felt, we was owed to our audience. We were very parasocially invested in us, because that's healthy, to hear the outcome of said thing there.
First of all, if you haven't gone and watched Caleb's video yet, it is incredible. And I'm not just saying that because he's like my podcast co-host. Like, honestly, one thing about Caleb's work that he does over on his YouTube channel is it is insane. Like, if you think that if you like what we do on this podcast where we analyze, Caleb takes that to the next level in his own channel. And stop. I would, however, like to defend myself a little bit. Although you do slightly agree with me in the video. You're like, I get what you're saying, but also this is why I'm kind of disagreeing with you.
To clarify for the viewers, I think we talked about this in last episode a little bit, but at a point I refer to a friend of mine and talk about welcome to the internet and it being kind of an old man yells at cloud type argument, and that is the section she is referring to here.
Right, yes. I am that friend. Hello. I have said that it's old man yells at cloud. Through many discussions with many people, because at this point the song is almost tainted for me, because if there's one thing about me, it's that I'm not going to give up if in an argument, even if I think I'm wrong. I said it, so I'm now right. It's a character flaw. I get it. But the song is now almost tainted for me because like every time I hear it, now I associate it with fighting with people over something that's not a black and white issue.
That is fair.
It is entirely gray.
That was, literally, you watched the video and texted me. You're like, "Yep, I'm fighting with my boyfriend."
I was
like, "Oh." Okay.
I started crying. It was like a whole thing.
Yeah. I was like, "Ooh, video sparking discussion."
Honestly, didn't I say that to you?
I think you did.
I did, because I got really mad at you. I sent you a text and then I reread the text and I was like, "Oh, this sounds really bitchy," and I don't mean to sound bitchy because it's a really good video. So like, I need to throw it. It didn't sound mad at
me. It just sounded like you were like emotionally distraught, and I was like, understandable. I was very tired when I read that, and I was like, "Oh yeah."
I'm glad you weren't mad, because I definitely, when I reread the text, I was like, "Oh, Caitlin, you need to." Chill. You need to take a chill pill, my guy. But what I was gonna say is I'm revising my statement. It's not old man yells at cloud. It is hypocritical, and that's kind of the point. And you bring that up in the video as well. I was just choosing to gloss over the fact that you were agreeing with me, but in doing so, my whole point, especially before the outtakes were posted, when we originally started this discussion and when I was clipped saying this, I said that to me it feels very hypocritical to be bitching about the internet on the internet, which it is. Right? Like, I think it's a diverse issue, and it's not black and white, and it's all these things. Multiple things can be right at once. Multiple things can be true. To me, it feels like every generation, there is some form of new technology that the older generation is like, this is going to destroy us all. This is going to ruin our lives. And it's always like, fine. Like, it's, know, like, I guess.
See, my thing, though, is also the Industrial Revolution, right? I mean, we can look back at that and be like, oh yeah, the Industrial Revolution, that worked out for us. But also, the Industrial Revolution, about half of it brought us some of the best things and like my favorite things in life all come back to there. And also some of the worst parts of capitalism and like horrible working conditions and a lot of stuff also come back to there. And I think that's all of it. With each of these things, everything is always going to be like half and half. You know?
I think it's an ethical conundrum. There is no such thing as ethical consumption under capitalism. So
that's my go-to phrase. I'm not gonna lie. That's
honestly same. I talk about it all the time.
That's the way
ultimately, you like, the video was awesome. I think you really highlighted both sides of the argument. The only thing I would like to revise is that now I just think it's hypocritical and not old man yells at cloud.
And I think that is to some degree fair. I think he I did
some degree.
See, well,
you literally agreed.
That's what I'm saying. To flesh out the last thing I'll say on the matter. I did in the video refer to it as him calling out some of his own hypocrisy there. And I think that's more so just because what I mean by that is in the outtake especially, of course, includes this long shot of him while filming this song for Welcome to the Internet getting distracted on his phone.
Yeah.
And I think he included that to be like, okay, see, now I'm also part of this problem as well. And I think ultimately the way to view the song isn't, I think it's more so that he is calling attention to it, but that doesn't mean, just because in a 4-minute period he's saying these things doesn't mean that's the entirety of the issue. Yeah. It's calling attention to something, but it's not saying that this is like the end all be all.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's also in the same way I mentioned this last night, where I'm like, I think if you're critiquing capitalism in a capitalist system, it's kind of the same sort of thing. But
no, I totally agree. I think for me, the main thing when I think of the internet, and granted there's so much fucking wrong with the internet, but the one thing that I am very, very passionate about, that I think that the internet has created a solution to fix the problem, is the socioeconomic gap in education. And so that's one thing that, like, it's really hard for me to criticize the internet as a whole in a black and white way, because of the incredible work that has been done to lower socioeconomic education dips.
100%. I mean, that's a very good point. And I think that, I my favorite clip, which again, I'm kind of reiterating some of this that we've talked about, but I just love when he's talking in an interview and he's like, it's both, it's like we're super stimulated, super numb, we're so connected, we're so far apart, we're, lonely and everything. It's all these different things at once. And I think ultimately the criticism to be had, the internet is so many things, but the thing is that the people who control the internet, the people who operate all these systems, like, we wouldn't have access to the internet right now if it weren't for certain billionaires abusing this and using it for different gains. And I think the internet, if it were in the hands of the people more, and it is to some degree, but I think it's so often abused in a lot of ways. And I think some of the most surrounded platforms on the internet, like TikTok or things like that, are very much like meant to manipulate you and try to like suck as much time as they can from you to target ads and all that stuff.
I also think it's hysterical. Two things. One, we're posting this on the internet on YouTube.
Yes.
We're part of the problem. And then two is that when before the Welcome to the Internet bit started, you had an ad on your video.
Oh yeah.
It was for like skincare. Like, it was.
I don't choose what ads go on my video.
I know. It's just like it made it. It was so funny. Like, the timing of it was like, I wish I could have like recorded when the timing was, because it was hilarious to me.
No, and I think, that was one of my, it was funny. I almost I had this struggle with it making the video as well, where I was like, that was a big part of me kind of acknowledging. I was like, shit. I was like, if I was gonna ever quit YouTube and just like go away from the internet, this would be the video to do it at. I'm not doing that because it's too late now.
We're whores for attention.
Yeah, I'm being peer pressured by Caitlin to stay on. That's why I'm still here, guys. I'm not a hypocrite. That's crazy. I'm kidding. I am a hypocrite to some degree.
But I think that the human race as a whole we're a bunch of hypocrites. That's part of what makes us so unique and different. And I think that the strength of humanity revolves around being able to adjust our thinking when being presented with new thoughts, ideas, and information. Which I can't do. But the humanity as a whole tends to be able to do that. But everything being said, we did watch a movie together last night.
Oh yeah, we should probably end this cold open and go to the intro. This is a little lengthier, but also, fuck you. It's about me, so I'm keeping it in because I'm narcissistic. All right, cool. Roll the intro thing. Yes. Hello, everybody. It's me, Caleb, your host, the host of this podcast, that podcast being the Cynical Cinephiles. Now, it's funny, we actually have two hosts. I'm not the only one. We're on equal footing. There's a second one of me, but not me. It's someone else, and that someone else is right here, and her name is?
Caitlin. So welcome to the Cynical Cinephiles podcast.
Hello.
I feel like we haven't talked about like what this podcast is in a long time. So essentially, we are two friends sitting down talking about movies. We each pick a movie. The bit is that Caleb is a English major who is super analytical and loves analyzing movies, and I am a know-it-all consumer. So
TikTok addict.
TikTok addict, kind of a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
And so and we're friends in real life.
Yeah.
Despite what we say.
At least that's what we want you to think.
Shut the fuck up. Today we watched Little Shop of Horrors.
Little shop of horrors. I don't know the words to this part. Yes, Little Shop of Horrors, though. I know we just showed the logo for the movie, but I'm also going to show Caitlin's beautiful little chalk design there. The camera's going to be going in on that because I haven't figured out a way to work it into the format naturally yet. So for now, to show off her beautiful little hand-drawn thing, it's just on screen.
Thank you.
Yeah. Also, if you're an audio listener, you don't get to see it. Sorry, she just drew wrote the name down with like a couple doodles, but it was good.
Yeah.
Yes, but that's the movie we're talking about.
Yes.
It was my pick. We had a fun little bit, and it's I think the first movie we're covering that both of us have seen already. I think, unless there was one I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure this is the only one that we've both seen prior, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that this is the first movie that we're covering that's also a musical.
I mean,
That's too,
as well.
It's groundbreaking for this podcast.
True.
We're covering a whole bunch of new fronts on every single
Finally.
turn.
I mean, I've been waiting for musicals, honestly.
I am such a musical theater nerd. And I think that's one of the things that like makes us such good friends is that like we both get pretty obsessive about musicals. I love them. It is one of my favorite modes of storytelling. I know that's like for the general population, that's kind of a hot take.
Yeah.
But like I fucking love it. I love this musical. It's one of my favorites. If not my favorite musical of all time.
Yeah.
When I told my dad that we were recording this episode, hi, Dad.
Hello, Caitlin's father. Nice
he was like, are you sure it wasn't your pick? Like, it's so fucking weird.
That is funny, yeah. We love to see it. We just occasionally we have shared good taste.
Yes.
Or you have good taste. I think
I'm not even going to argue. My taste is garbage, usually.
I won't argue it either because I just said it. I would actually agree, though. I mean, I think for a long time, I definitely said it was my favorite musical. Is it still? I think maybe. I don't have a definitive ranking of my musicals. I don't have a specific favorite that comes to mind. So I might be bold enough to say this is my favorite, or at least one of my favorites, specifically like the Broadway version, I would say. Not necessarily movie musicals. I also feel like movie musicals are kind of different breed in general.
I would say it's kind of the same kind of vibe as like the book is better than the movie. I think it's a different format. It's more accessible to people. And so I have to love movie musicals just for the accessibility that it brings of these like beautiful stories and this beautiful music to the general public. Absolutely.
And I think before we get into the summary, I'll continue off that point briefly because I do want to say I think the interesting thing with adapting like Broadway musicals for like the stage to a screen is that I think they are like they're fundamentally different experiences in scope and in terms of like the way they're written and like the way that the themes are carried over, the way the characters are written on the stage. These are much grander strokes. They're large strokes that they're painting. They're not going into the intricacies. They're not really like up close and personal. And I think that is a big thing that a lot of movie musicals struggle with is when they're taking something that's got the broad strokes, you have to adapt it to film language. You have to explore the intricacies. I think I would love to, if it would be really funny if we covered the Dear Evan Hansen movie at some point. I haven't
seen it.
Good. Don't please don't until we do it for the podcast. Yeah. Until you watch the musical. Actually, I will never let us cover the movie on this until you've seen the actual musical.
That's what I haven't even listened to the music.
Fair.
I don't know anything about it.
That's fair. I have a lot to say on that, but I will hold off. I kind of want to make a video on it at some point, but I haven't decided. But I think the interesting thing with that case, the movie's fucking awful. But the biggest reason for that is because the musical has these very broad strokes that work in that they're not too deeply explored and you're getting that very broad view of things. But then the movie, instead of looking at this guy from like 70,000 feet away, you're looking at his up close, like 45-year-old face playing a 16-year-old kid. And, when you're up close and personal and you're seeing actions in this different light and they're not expanding on any of the nuances of morality or mental health or anything, it becomes a very like, oh, this is gross. And I feel gross watching this and this feels bad. And it almost sours the taste of musical because this is supposed to be the thing that gives you that little deeper look. And then if the movie version doesn't really provide you any more nuance or anything, if it doesn't make use of that format and just gives you the same thing as the musical but much worse because it's not meant for this format, it sours the musical as a result. Mm-hmm. Anyway, sorry, I just wanted to say all of that just on that topic. We also have to summarize, so that's a you thing, Caitlin.
Okay, so Little Shop of Horrors, which is the musical we're talking about today.
It's the one. Yeah.
So Little Shop of Horrors is about Seymour Krelborn. He lives in Skid Row, in a downtown.
It's gonna be hard. This isn't gonna work. I'm gonna today. Be singing a lot of things.
So he lives in Skid Row, which is like it's a poorer part of the city. Mm-hmm. He goes into Chinatown and finds this weird and unusual plant during a total eclipse of the sun, right?
Those are the lines.
Yes. And so he takes it back to his flower shop that he works at and also lives at. And the owner of the shop is about to shut everything down when he brings up Audrey 2 and displays it in the window, and they start gaining traction and customers. And so now, because he's done this, he has to find a way to keep this plant alive in order to keep business going, to keep everyone happy. But it turns out that Audrey 2 only drinks blood.
I hate it when that happens.
Ugh, don't you hate it when you get a very strange and peculiar sort of Venus flytrap
during the total eclipse
eclipse of the sun, and then it just wants your blood?
Yeah, that's why I don't have plants in my room. But yeah, I mean, I think that's generally pretty much the take is he has to get blood for it, you know, because if just first little drops of fingers and then eventually murder. Horrors, and also because
and terrors,
because it's the song they say horrors and terrors. There's they're both equally in the Audrey 2 is also based on Audrey 1. The name is at least. So that's another character.
And Audrey is Seymour's coworker, and also he has a major crush on her.
Yes.
Yeah. But I feel like we're going to talk a lot about Audrey in this episode, which is funny because I didn't bring her up once during the actual synopsis of the musical. But I do really want to delve into Audrey's character because I feel very strongly about it. And mostly because Toby and Amber were shitting on her, and I will not stand for that.
For new listeners, Toby is Caitlin's boyfriend, and I don't think have we mentioned who Amber is yet?
Yes.
Okay, her best friend.
My best friend.
Yes.
Besides,
I'm not.
Besides
enough, but it's
Caleb.
Okay. Yeah, but no, they were both very anti Audrey during our viewing.
Yes, and it made me very upset.
Yeah, I was like, dang, I can't say anything though.
Yeah.
I was like. Silent.
I did say things, and I won't repeat them here.
That's fair. I don't even remember what you said, so it's perfect because we're going to go through it again here.
That is fair.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you here. Let's talk about Audrey first.
Okay.
Because I mean, we've basically built up to it. So I think, and I'll let you kind of take the lead on this because I feel like you have a more interesting. You're a woman, and I think given that a lot of critiques against her revolve around
feminism,
exactly feminism, portrayal of women, stuff like that. I think that's more.
So two things, right? The first thing is I want to call back to what you said while talking about Dear Evan Hansen, right?
Yes.
Is that this is written for stage, in which certain character tropes have to exist because of the format that the story exists under. So when you have a musical, especially when it's more of a comedy, this is a campy comedy horror, right? Most of these characters are going to exist in stereotypes. And so, like, you have your Seymour, who's like the nerdy, goofy kind of guy, can't do anything right. Aw, shucks, right? And then you have like your Audrey, who is, you know, constantly being beat up by her boyfriend, can't seem to get out of the situation that she's in.
Yeah.
Because Audrey has to exist in this kind of bubble of stage production and the portrayal of her in that, she's not able, her character isn't explored to the depths which I think she exists in, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that I want to point out is that this musical takes place during the 1950s, in which women didn't have a shit ton of rights, right?
Yeah.
And so in that case, she is a product of her situation, which was my big buzzword last night.
Yeah.
So as far as Audrey is concerned, she desperately wants to get out of Skid Row. She is dating a man who is a dentist and makes a lot of money. And so it doesn't really matter to her if he hits her because she's trying to get out of Skid Row, right? But the other really important thing to note is that she has been poor her whole life.
Yeah.
She didn't grow up with a father, and I'm not trying to say daddy issues or anything, but she didn't grow up with a lot of positive parental guidance, right? But what she's always been is pretty. And so, and she grew up in this area in which men don't treat women correctly. And so I'm sure there's also a lot of self-esteem issues where and it's evident in the musical as well, where she talks about how she doesn't think she's worthy of a good man because of what she has to do for work. Because not only does she work at the flower shop during the day, she's also essentially a stripper by night.
Yeah. Yeah.
In order to make ends meet. So.
No, yeah. I mean, I think it really does actually like exactly go back to that thing about like broader strokes when it comes to like musicals, things written for the stage. And I think, I think in this case, the translation does work more just because.
Yeah.
I don't know,
for
like,
sure.
Yeah. I think the way that it's shot and like the presentation of it doesn't like trick the audience into thinking it's like something more intimate. Like it's not a Dear Evan Hansen type situation. But I think exactly. It's like her character, you can get a huge sense of like these issues. And I do think that the musical is critiquing a lot of these things as well. It's just not like spending a ton of time delving into the intricacies because that's not what it's using its time elsewhere. It's using it more efficiently. That's a big part of it, but it's not going to like go out of its way to like spend like 20 minutes diving deep into her psychology because it also, I think, trusts that the audience will start to kind of get that a little bit.
It also was written I can't remember exactly when it was written, but it wasn't written last week. You know what I'm saying?
No, yeah. And the original film that the musical is based on came out in the 50s. And then I believe the musical was like the 70s or so. I don't know when the musical exactly came out, but the original film was the 50s. And that was what it was all based on. So, old. It is old.
It is old. And like, I think that the character of Audrey, whether it's feminist or anti-feminist, it doesn't matter to me in this sense because she is used essentially as a plot device to give Seymour a reason to want to kill people to feed the plant, right? Like she's used, and normally I know that I'm normally against using women as accessories. I think it works in this case because they did give her more of a personality than just being abused, right? And we kind of get to see that nuance there. The other thing is that I feel like people who aren't used to watching musical theater they'll kind of turn off their listening ears when the songs are playing. And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes that's not. Yeah. There are two, in my opinion, my thesis, right? Yes. There are two kinds of musical theater numbers. There is the numbers that pause time and explore an emotion that just happens in that frame of time, right? Or there are songs that progress the story, right? And Little Shop of Horrors, the songs progress the story.
Yeah.
Most of them do. There's some that are like Skid Row.
Downtown,
Yeah. That's a pause in time. However, it is giving exposition and backstory for these characters. Like so if you are turning off your listening ears and not paying attention to the lyrics that are being sung, you're going to miss some of this character development, and you're also going to miss people's backstories and the emotions that are being felt there.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I think, I don't really have much to add on to that because I think that just very succinctly sums it up. I mean, I think my only gripe with Audrey, just in the movie version, really, and it's not really even a gripe, it's just a mild thing, is, I mean, I think Amber, if
you're about to bitch about her voice.
Well, just slightly, just because in the musical it was not like the actress. What's her name? It's
Ellen Green.
She definitely puts her own spin on it, and I think also like in some of the musical numbers, while she hits those notes, she belts that shit terrifically. She sometimes like goes a little like to like, I don't know, these breathy like very like, I don't know. I do think it like adds I don't hate it. It's just. It does. I can get why people are like a little thrown off by it. It doesn't bother me, but I can.
The reason that I feel like people are thrown off by it is because it's not what they're used to hearing, and so I think because it doesn't fall into what you think a soprano's voice should sound like, that they immediately think it's bad or it's annoying because their brain isn't like used to hearing that. But I think it's so cute. I think it's funny, and I think it adds to her character really well. I mean, without it, I think it's still fine, but it's not like offensive to me.
I think the only times in which I would prefer without it is honestly just in the musical numbers specifically. And this I think is a hot take because I know people really like her performance in Suddenly Seymour, but I love it. I prefer like the musical recordings, and I don't, the breathiness of her specific, and not all of it, but like when she hits the high notes, like she just adds like this extra.
I love it.
Like, I don't know. It just doesn't hit for me in the same way.
I don't know if Ellen Green is a controversial figure. I haven't researched her too much. I
mean, I think she's
but I fucking love her. She is my Audrey. I love her.
She's terrific. She's great in the in Pushing Daisies, the television series. Very, very good. I love her a lot. I think something very interesting, though, with her character tying into Seymour's character, which I think is going to open up a big line of discussion, is almost the treatment of him as like the ideal or like the nice guy. Nice guy's finished. Like he's like, I am the one who deserves, like, I don't know. I do think it plays a little into that. I think that's something very interesting.
Yeah, I think that Seymour is, again, he's one of those, he's a stereotype, right? Because essentially, in my opinion, right? Yeah. I feel like the reason that these dates and times of when these events are supposedly to have happened are intended to be not fully fleshed out, right? Is because this is like a copy paste story. This could have happened to anyone at any time. Yeah. In anywhere, right? And so that's why part of it is that there are these caricatures of characters is because they're supposed to just represent, a group of people, right? Seymour, I don't think he has any negative attention or negative intentions. I think that he is just a goofy guy who has never had anything go right for him his life. And I think, if the thing is if he wouldn't have had any sort of success or money, there is no chance in hell that Audrey would have gone for him. Like, it's clear that they have like this little bit of a connection. Yeah. She has a little bit of a crush on him because he's nice. But knowing what we know about Audrey's character, she is bold-faced lying when she says that she would have loved him even without the money and the fame. Yeah. Because that is her character's intention throughout the whole movie, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But I think that Audrey, too, specifically, is almost kind of a satire of capitalism and like what greed can do, and how when you see something that is so crazy and bizarre and you find out what it's doing, and don't feed the plant, like, you know,
don't feed into
if you can see that this plant is not good, like, don't feed the plant.
Absolutely. Don't get tempted by the way it's like, ooh, betray the people around you. You can get anything you want.
Right.
And I think ultimately, and a big reason I bring this up is because I feel one of the trickiest things with the movie for me, and it's like a 50-50 because I feel very split down the middle, and it's Rick Moranis. Because on the one hand, I adore Rick Moranis.
Oh my God.
One of my
can
favorite
do no
people.
wrong to me.
And for like, and even his portrayal in this, he's very lovable. He's very goofy. He's awesome. I love him in everything he's in. But I think that because Rick Moranis is Rick Moranis, the character of Seymour ends up reading very, very differently than I think the original Broadway play kind of intended.
That could be
right?
totally true.
Because I think Seymour is not supposed to be as lovable as he is. Like when I've seen the I've seen it on stage like twice, and I feel like Seymour comes off a lot more like, I don't know. It feels like they're like trying to highlight some of his negative traits, and it's very like nuanced where there are positive parts to him, but he slowly kind of goes down this negative spiral, and that's like why it ends up in the original ending the way it is. But I was like noticing like Amber's reaction, for example, and like throughout the whole thing, she's just very much like, she's like, oh, he's so cute, he's so sweet, and she was like very much rooting for him, which is I think also connects to the ending change, which we can talk about in a moment. But I do think that a lot of like the weird things with the movie, or even some of the like slightly incel-y nice guy vibes I get from some of it, aren't I feel like it's just because of like the way that the movie version portrays Seymour as like a more positively, that those traits kind of get like brushed aside, whereas I think in the musical version he's more visibly a nuanced, like complex character with like faults and positives, and like, because I think like kind of what you were saying earlier with both Audrey and Seymour, I think it's like the musical's like showing them as they are, like it's not it's showing these average people with average lives. It's not, you know, they have flaws, they have positives, but they're living in this situation. They are who they are, and they're not going to really dissect and like shove a lot of that in your face, but you just kind of have to accept that they're just like people, you know, they have their different things. I don't know.
I know. I totally agree. I've seen Little Shop of Horrors on stage, I think only once. I've never, and when I listen to the music, I listen to the movie version, and so I don't think I've really explored different options for Seymour, specifically because the production that I watched of Little Shop of Horrors made a major change that changed a major theme for me, and so I wasn't super paying attention to Seymour.
What was the major change?
They had Audrey 2 played by a woman.
Oh, interesting.
Yes, which I think is a very popular change. But I do think it adds a lot of nuance to specifically, obviously, Audrey 2, but also the relationship dynamic between Audrey 2 and Seymour, because they played it as more of a seduction, more of like a Lady Macbeth kind of thing, rather than, hey, dickweed, go get me some fucking blood, you know?
Fair, honestly. Which is interesting. I think that change definitely does frame it differently.
It does, and it made it, I really liked it. I thought it was a really, really good take on it.
Honestly, that's really interesting. That's curious. Okay, I think maybe we should talk about the ending change now and all that. So we talked about this at the end of our last episode when we were talking about how we were going to do this for the next episode. But we weren't just covering the original version of the movie. We're also in this discussion including the director's cut version, which basically features the original ending that was filmed and planned before test audiences were like, no.
Can I explain it?
Yes.
Okay. So the original director's cut ending, which is, I would like to make it abundantly clear, the Broadway ending.
Yes.
Ends with the plant eating Seymour and the plants taking over the world, right?
And the plant eating Audrey as well. Before Seymour.
Yeah, but the plant doesn't finish off Audrey. She dies in Seymour's arms.
And then it gets fed to her.
Oh, yeah. Oh, which is such a cool scene,
oh,
by the way.
God.
Yeah. And then the plants essentially taking over the world. And then that's when we get the song Don't Feed the Plants, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they showed this to audiences. The audience was like, you can't do that to Rick Moranis.
Literally.
He's so cute and lovable. And so they ended up refilming the end to give it a happier ending in which Seymour and Audrey get a happily ever after.
Yeah, they kill the plant and then they eat off to somewhere that's green.
He uses an electrical wire on, and Audrey's on water and burns her.
Yeah.
Alive. It
alive. Yeah.
They alive.
They alive.
Them.
Yeah. Them. I was like, there you go. Yeah.
So that's the major difference between the two. And they do get their little happily ever after, and that's what was the theatrical release for it. I wholeheartedly disagree with this change.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it takes away so much of the nuance and the themes that the musical is trying to portray.
For sure. I feel like, and it's really funny because, of course, like as a kid, because I watching this from a young age, I would watch the original version, obviously, because the director's cut wasn't even out, I believe, until like 2017 or something like that.
Oh, really?
I'm pretty sure it was very recent, like only a few years ago did it actually come out. But so as a kid, that was what we had, and I think I never really thought about it like that, and I was like, oh yeah, this is good. But it's like now, having seen the director's cut and the Broadway version, watching the theatrical ending is just so weird to me.
It's like, not satisfying.
Yeah, it just feels very
it's
make
forced.
It happy. Yeah. And even like the death of Audrey too, I feel like is just goofy and like so quick and like it just doesn't conclude it in the same way.
The funniest thing to me is that like I knew this wasn't the original Broadway that it wasn't the original Broadway ending every time I would watch it.
Yeah.
However, I was making Toby watch it for the first time, and I told you this story.
Yeah.
And somehow I got my hands on the director's cut. Don't know how that happened. Don't know how I didn't notice. Right.
Yeah.
And so we're watching it, and the ending comes, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, this is not how this movie ends. Like, I thought it was like a mandala effect. I was like Googling. I was a Googling machine. And then I found out everything, and
Then you're like, oh, it's not the same. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that this sounds like a very amusing experience to undergo. I just think it hits so much, like so many different elements and beats and character choices hit so much harder in the director's cut. Specifically, one of the bits I really love in one version and a lot less in the original version. Sorry, in the director's cut version versus the original version, is there's a salesman who's like, hey, we're gonna take cuttings of Audrey 2 and make them into little Audrey 2s and sell them across America. It's gonna be bigger than hula hoops.
Right.
And in the theatrical cut, it's like, Audrey almost got eaten by the plant, but she like made it out all right. They have like a fun little like happy reprise together. They're like, oh, we're gonna make it out of here. We're gonna kill the plant. It's gonna be good. And then this guy comes up and he says this, and they're like, get the fuck out, bro. All right, I guess we really should take care of this plant now. Whereas in the director's cut, right, this is Audrey dies. She gets chomped on by the plant. He, even though he, gets her out of the mouth of the plant, she's just dies in his arms. And then he feeds her to the plant, and he goes up to like kill himself. He's like, this is like the most despair shit of his life. He's like, his own actions have caused like the woman he loved to die.
His actions had consequences.
Exactly. His actions had consequences. All of this, everything came back around to bite him in the end. And as he's like about to kill himself, the guy comes up behind him. And in the director's cut version, he already has the plant. Yeah. He actually made it in this version. And he's like, hey, we have mini Audrey 2 here, and we're going to sell them everywhere. And then it plays a lot more horrifying. You're like, holy shit. Because we just watched the effects of this. Like, because most of the deaths in the movie are very like, they're pretty comedic, or like they're not too serious.
Yeah, but like, Audrey's very specifically is played.
Yeah.
It's almost romantic the way that she dies and then is then fed to the plant. Like it's very like Shakespearean almost. Like it's so fucking nuanced.
Yeah.
It's like because she's laying. So when she's being chomped on by the plant, her legs are sticking out, but he feeds her to the plant like feet first, and so she is laying on her back with her arms out, with her head facing out. It's just so good. I feel like you should insert like a picture of like what she looks like.
Yeah,
as she's.
I'll overlay some footage for our video viewers here because it really does. It goes hard.
It goes fucking hard.
Oh my god, it's just it really just plays for horror so much more, and you like you're terrified because you are almost feeling the same emotions Seymour is feeling here of like this is what his actions caused. Like he might have brought about that end of the world,
which he did.
Of this. Which I mean in the director's cut he does. The plants do spread after he dies, and every part of America has the plants, and then the plants take over the world and everyone dies. So that's what happens at the end of the movie. Spoiler alert. Yeah. But I also think, I mean, on the note of playing things for horror, when Audrey is dying, I adore the utilization of the reprise of Somewhere That's Green.
Yes.
It's fucked, man. Because it's like early in the film, there's this number, Somewhere That's Green, where she's like, I want to go live in the suburbs, a housewife. I believe American propaganda.
Right.
But then this comes back at the end where she's like, I want to go somewhere that's green. She's talking about the fucking plant.
Yeah.
She wants to be fed to the plant. And it's like,
and it's such an interesting change between the two, specifically on which one of her songs they reprise, right?
Yeah,
because in the theatrical release, they reprise Suddenly Seymour.
Doubling down on their relationship and all that.
Right. But when they feed her to the plant, when he is carrying her to the plant, Somewhere That's Green is playing in the background.
Yeah, I think they have a few different melodies because I also recognize some downtown tunes in there, and it all comes back around, and that's like really the climax almost. I feel like Seymour's death after that is not even, it's more of like a whimper in the wind, you know,
as compared to her death.
Exactly, because that's really when it all is gone. Like he ends up, and the movie does exaggerate more because they add in the song Mean Green Mother from Outer Space, which was not in the original version, and that includes the whole fight he has with the plant, which was not in the original
Mean
version.
Green Mother is not in the...
That's a film original song, actually. It's the only film original song. It's a good song. It's a good addition. But yeah, I mean, so we get the extra fight there, at least in the movie version, but it still just kind of ends with Seymour just... That's it for him. So I mean, that is just the biggest moment. And I think something that's interesting, this is like almost more of a slight headcanon of mine, is that I think in the scene where Audrey's dying, I think she's like slightly influenced by the plant, because it's like, I think throughout the movie it's made very clear that the plant can like basically hypnotize people and control these things kind of a little bit. Like all the people would come to the door and like say the exact same thing word for word, which I always growing up found is like a very creepy, like such a clever use of horror, is like it's using slight little manipulation to kind of get these people and like these almost brainless, like they're just being like mindlessly drawn in. I think, you know, there could be some parallels to capitalism, the way it can kind of subconsciously prompt you to go about things if we want to make that connection there. But I think I really do feel like her demeanor in her whole death scene is just very off-putting. There's certain lines she says where she's like almost cracking jokes about it, or just being very nonchalant about her death in some lines. Yeah. And I think to me, I always have gotten like the vibe that maybe the plant was kind of like, ooh yeah, give it to me.
I had a different view on all the elements of her death, and that is that she just she thinks she is so worthless that if she has to die, which she will, she wants Seymour to continue to be successful. So she wants to be fed to the plant so that the plant can grow and continue to bring Seymour success.
No, I think that is also there as well. I think for me, I feel like the plant enhances things that are already there in people. Okay. I think it kind of just brings out that in people. It kind of just is like pushes their actual things. And I think exactly with Audrey there, where she's like, she wants to help Seymour's success there, and she's like, okay, at least I can do something in death, and like I can bring value to you, and like all this stuff there. And I think he's just it's just kind of pushing that a little bit more, playing it, just
amplifying
it. Exactly. But I mean, I don't know.
We need to talk about the best character?
Mr. Mushnick.
Mr. Mushnick is the worst character.
Mr. Mushnick. He's got a funny name.
No, I'm talking about Oren.
Oof, the dentist.
The dentist himself.
He's a success. Oh my God, Steve Martin's performance.
It is
so good. It's
fucking
so
good.
He's so goofy. He adds so much to it, and it's a delight. Which is funny given that he's very abusive and
yeah, he's awful.
Yeah.
The actual character we don't stand.
Yeah, we don't.
But his performance is just so fucking good, and I'm just such a big fan of that song. I'm a huge fan of the build up to that song, of him riding in on the motorcycle and then throwing off the leather jacket to show that he's in his dentist uniform. It is so fucking funny to me.
It's so good. I just thoroughly throughout, he's just a delight to watch on screen. Steve Martin, I adore. He's one of the greatest comedic minds, I think, of the last century, I would say.
I agree.
He's just I don't have a whole lot to say on him, I suppose.
No, I guess I don't either. I just wanted to make sure he made an appearance in the podcast because I fucking love his character.
He's just thoroughly great.
A dentist who's addicted to nitrous oxide. Like, that is so
very
fucking funny.
Very sadistic and all that. I do think it's also, the movie, of course, adds in another character to give Bill Murray that little cameo, which I always have found is just a funny, random fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like, Bill Murray's just randomly here for like one scene to be a huge masochist. It's just so random, but it's also like, okay,
but we don't stand Bill Murray.
Yeah, we do.
Apparently.
We do not. I think.
Apparently, he's a dick.
Yeah. He's not good to people he works with.
Yeah.
I was actually just having a conversation about. I wasn't with you though.
No.
Right? Okay. I have. That's weird. That's like the third time.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Okay, songs. It is a musical, so I'm curious. What are let's talk on songs a little, because I
would love to.
Yeah, I'm like this is the meat, really.
Yes. What is your favorite song?
My favorite song. Fuck, that is actually hard.
It's so hard because every time a song played during the movie, I was
this is my favorite.
And Amber was like, they can't all be your favorite.
But
and I was like, but they are. There's like 2 songs in it that like I just don't care as much about.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really care. Here's my hot take. I don't give a fuck about Somewhere That's Green. At least the original version.
Really?
Yeah, no, I've always found that just meh.
I love that song.
Meh. I think the visuals for it are pretty funny. I think it's like the way that they play up the whole suburb aesthetic, and it's very funny, but like the song itself, I could not give less of a fuck about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I truly don't care.
I desperately want to perform it one day.
Honestly, fair. That would go hard. I won't lie.
Yeah.
See, oh my God, I love Skid Row Downtown.
Skid Row might be my favorite song.
Yeah, it's so good. And
then, Feed Me.
I was gonna,
Feed Me might be.
Feed Me so good.
So I think Dentist is. What is that song actually called?
I think it actually is called Dentist. I'm pretty sure.
Word?
If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. Flame me, please.
But Dentist, I think, is one of the best comedic songs in it.
Yeah.
But I love Feed Me. I think it is so good. I think it brings so much to both of the characters. It is so fucking good.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Feed Me is, oh my God. It's just the ending of that too. It's like, gosh, sure looks like playing food to me. Like, I don't know, it just builds up to it, and it's terrific. Feed Me is also one of my very favorites. Their whole dynamic in that scene, but the dynamic between Seymour and Audrey too. It's just the banter and the way. It's terrific. Also, just to say this in regards to this scene, because I want a chance to say this, the way they shot that scene is crazy. Because I watched the director's cut when it premiered in theaters, and one of the things that came with that is they had a little documentary behind the scenes thing for it was like 20 minutes long at the beginning of the movie. And one of the things, this is what I learned from that. I believe that's where I remember learning about this. But the thing is puppeteering that whole giant plant. It's not going to be as like the lip syncing specifically. You can't really do in that like in real time. So what they actually had to do is Rick Moranis had to walk and sing and talk at like 6 times slower than he actually was like at. So that whole scene, he's actually in slow, like in real life, he was actually like, so they could very slowly get all the.
Really?
Yeah. So that's actually all sped up to match the song, and that's
a
crazy.
fast song.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is really awesome.
That's so cool. That like technical shit like that's always like the coolest shit. I'm like, oh my god.
And I think
dedication.
that, you know, now that you bring that up, the puppeteering. The fact that, and I know that part of it's that they didn't really have that technology back then.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad they didn't. It's like the Jurassic Park dinosaurs. Like
exactly.
It is so fucking good. It would be completely ruined if Audrey was CGI'd in.
No, 100%. And that's one of those things where it's always very sad when we don't use practical effects in a lot of cases, when I think practical effects is such a unique craft, and I think it adds so much. It
adds so fucking much.
Yeah, it's like, sure, it's easier to use digital stuff, but I think that the dedication to like filming a scene at 6 times slower than it actually is, just to perfectly get the, like, I don't know, that's the kind of shit I love in film. That's what I love about that art form as a whole. That's like the ingenuity, like finding a creative way to reach the concept you're aiming at. Like, you don't get that nearly as much anymore, and that's the exact shit I fucking crave.
I wholeheartely agree.
Yeah.
It is. That might be the coldest take you've ever.
Yeah, that's not too hot, guys. I know. It's a little crazy.
I fucking love it. All the costuming is great.
Oh my god. The set design.
The set design is so iconic. It is beautiful. It is so well done. How do you feel about the soundtrack?
The soundtrack goes hard. I also want to just give a shout out to the song, what is it, Grow For Me? That song goes
it's
so hard.
Really
well.
Good.
Yeah. No, sorry. That was like, it's the one I didn't mention. It was that one. Also, Suddenly Seymour is of course good, but it's very.
Suddenly Seymour is Somewhere That's Green.
Fair. See, for me, it's the song that I think is the best song for karaoke. I love that song karaoke. And I think because of karaoke specifically, that's why it's the most popular song for musical. And I think out of all the songs, it should not be the most popular. I do think it's got less depth than a lot of the others. And I also think it kind of, out of context, it misportrays Seymour and Audrey's relationship. So people kind of have like listening to the song on its own, like just people are just like, oh, I know that song, without having seen the musical. I feel like they get a very different idea of that dynamic, but it's still a good song. It's just
it's a really good song. I just think it portrays Seymour as kind of not who he is.
Yeah. And it's very savior complexing. I don't know.
Yeah, it is a little bit.
Yeah, that's like one of those songs where you're just like, ooh, it's a little weird.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a strange.
But I love
dynamic.
it.
You know, yeah, it's still a great song. I will sing it at every karaoke ever. It's my go-to. But yeah, no, I mean, sorry to finish off the set design. I think I interrupted that.
No, you're
songs.
fine.
I just think that they I mean, the whole Skid Row, like surrounding the plant shop, I guess I was like, what is that, plant shop? Yeah. It's all like one set. You can clearly see, and I didn't realize this until like a couple viewings ago, and like I really got to appreciate just like this is all in one kind of cohesive set. Everything that happens in the film, because of course it's based on the musical, and it's like this in the musical, everything happens like all in the same like corner, basically same block of the street, which again, I mean, makes sense for a musical, but it is cool to see in the film version how it is like all on this one set. Everything happens in this very tiny little thing, and it's just gorgeous.
Another thing that I want to point out is the color theory that happens. So when you are outside of the plant shop, and even inside the plant shop, but before Audrey 2 takes over, everything is in browns. Everything is really murky brown, like a sepia kind of color palette, except for the narrators, because they need to be noticed in order to tell the story, right? Which we haven't even talked about the narrators, really.
Oh yeah, they're great.
Fantastic. Love them.
I don't have much to say about them. They're awesome.
Other than I love them.
Yeah.
But then as soon as Audrey comes into the picture, the first thing you notice when Seymour brings out Audrey is this very distinctive blue coffee what canister, right? And then the greenery of the plant, right?
Yeah.
And so then once you have people starting to come in, and as Audrey is growing, all of the color palettes on the inside of the flower shop start to be bright and beautiful. Audrey changes from wearing just like black and cheetah print to wearing this beautiful red dress, and then she wears the pink dress. And so I just think that the color story there is very interesting.
Absolutely. It's a masterclass, honestly. It's so visually stunning and great. And the only other thing I did want to actually say, because I forgot to say this when we were talking about the director's cut earlier, I just wanted to give props to the guy who did all the stop motion for the plants destroying the world.
Yes.
And I think that was one of the craziest things when I watched the director's cut for the first time, with the whole behind the scenes thing and like the prelude. They gave like a little introduction for it and everything. And one of the things that they had mentioned is that like, to the guy who did the stop motion, and the big reason they released the director's cut is to show off his work, because he apparently worked for like months. Like this one dude on his own worked for like 9 months straight just making all of this.
Oh, really?
And the whole thing was cut. Like that was like a year of his life almost that he just exclusively spent just making this all, and like that was his like project, and it was all cut. And I think that it is funny because when you're watching the director's cut, I feel like the whole plants taking over the world sequence goes on a little long. You're like, okay, I get it at this point. But at the same time, I think the reason they included every second of footage was just to really like kind of at least give this guy his moment, because that dude worked so hard, and it's such a shame that the majority of people who watch like Little Shop will never get to see like the year that he spent working on this. Like he's like, that's crazy.
That is insane.
Yeah. So I don't remember your name, guy. I clearly don't. I didn't remember that much.
If you're watching the video version, Caleb is going to research it and then put the name here.
Yeah, there it is. That's work for me later, and I will do that work. If you're listening to the audio version, sorry.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah,
my bad, Chief.
But I think that's that mostly.
I think that's it.
So
I think we should talk about quote of the movie.
Quote of the movie. Funny thing, I did not really write almost any notes. I did
didn't
write
take
like 2 quotes, and that's it.
I did not take any notes.
I don't think I actually took a single regular note. I think I just wrote 2 quotes, and that was all I wrote, because I was like,
I did not write a single quote, because I was like, I just want to watch this movie.
Fair. Yeah, that was that. Honestly, yeah. Yeah. So I guess I assume you looked up like a page of quotes.
I did.
Right?
I did, and then I also have some that are just ruminating in my brain.
Okay. I'll mention my first one, and then I'll wait on my second one for a little while. The first one, and these are just things that I happen to be like, that's funny, or like they just like were enough that I was like, I'm gonna write it down. So the first one is just like when the dentist is trying to do Seymour's teeth, he whips out the like little tooth cleaning thing, and Seymour's like, it's rusty, and he's like, it's an antique. That shit's so funny to me.
So good.
It's just like this rusty ass thing. It's an antique.
Obsessed.
Yeah, that's
So the first one that I was thinking about was, of course, the guy sure looks like plant food to me, because that's iconic.
Oh yeah.
Another one that I think just sums up the antithesis, or not the antithesis, the thesis of the musical is don't feed the plants.
Yeah.
Whatever they offer you, don't feed the plants.
Honestly.
But let's look at some of these.
Let's take a glance again.
This one I think is really good, because I think it kind of summarizes a little bit about Audrey's character and her relationship dynamic with Seymour. So Seymour says, you'd still like me even if I wasn't famous. And Audrey says, I'd still love you. All I ever wanted was you and a sweet little house.
Oh shit. Okay, yeah, that's pretty good actually.
Right?
Honestly, yeah.
I'm a big fan of the scene where you were talking about, where the people come in and they're starting to notice the plant.
Oh yeah.
Because Mr. Mushnick says, listen, Seymour, just because you put a strange and interesting plant in the window doesn't mean it'll bring in customers. Excuse me, but I couldn't help but notice that strange and interesting plant in the window.
Oh, that shit's so funny. Very excellently timed scene.
Big fan of, look, you're a plant, an inanimate object. And Audrey too says, does this look inanimate to you, punk? If I can talk and I can move, who's to say I can't do anything I want?
Classic. I'll read off my second one.
Okay.
It's the only other one I have. Which is it's from the director's cut specifically. And this is the reason I wrote this is just because this has always been a line that I just have in the back of my head at all times. Whenever I even think of the director's cut specifically, this line comes up, and it's just it's Audrey when she's dying, and she just goes, "When I die, which will be very shortly." Like, it's just that, I don't know why that's always stood out to me.
Oh, Audrey 2 is not a healthy girl. Strictly between us, neither is Audrey 1.
That's a really funny one.
Good.
That one was that's a banger one.
Yeah, that's so good.
Honestly, yeah. Are there any specific quotes you're really feeling out of these? Aside from the musical ones, because I don't want to use the song. Because we'll get copyrighted.
That sucks.
Yeah, I know. I was like, we have to take those ones out probably. I mean, we could maybe get away with it, but I'm like, I don't get too risky.
All right, so since Caleb won't let me have the one that I want, because apparently copyright is a thing.
It is a thing. That's
It
true.
is a thing.
That's what I've heard.
The Cynical Cinephiles quote of the movie is going to be, as I literally put it down, because I'm dumb.
As one does.
You'd still like me even if I wasn't famous? I'd still love you. All I ever wanted was you. And a sweet little house.
Classic. All right.
Classic.
Roll. J. Clear.
You mean you'd still like me even if I wasn't famous?
I'd still love you, Seymour.
Really?
All I ever wanted was you in a sweet little house.
The clip has been rolled.
It has been rolled. You stole my.
I stole your bet.
That was my that's my favorite part of this.
All right.
It's too late. It's too late. It's been done.
Okay, word.
You've got it now. All right. I'm not hurt. It's all right.
What was I going
Final
to say?
scores, right?
Oh, before the final scores,
Not
I do
final
want to
scores.
put in that my quote of the movie, if we're including musical numbers that you're not going to insert in, my favorite quote is, "Don't feed the plants. Whatever they offer you,
Fair.
don't feed the plants."
Honestly, words to live by.
Words to live by.
So here's the question for final scores, because we have two cuts. Do we rate them differently, or do we?
No, I'm just going to rate the director's cut.
Okay. We're rating the director's cut specifically, guys. I have to think, because I have see the. Nine.
10.
9. Yeah.
You
So
knew
I'll
it
say
was gonna be a
8.5.
10.
I'll say 8.5.
Why?
Just because I think
You
it's
already
better.
said 9.
No, 8.5 is
Nope,
actually
it's too late.
it's not-
You already
it's
said
not-
9.
It's not too late. It's 8.5.
Fuck you.
All
It's
right.
a 10 from me.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone already knew that coming in based off of my reaction to hearing that this was going to be the pick for this week.
Yeah, and I already knew it was going to be a 10 as well.
I just
Mainly
fucking
because
love
you
this movie.
Said that it would be beforehand, but no, I mean, I think the musical, I would like the Broadway show version. I would probably rate like maybe a 9.25 or 9.5, but I think I want to give an 8.5 to this just because I think it's, I don't know. I think that's more. Well,
I think that's rude.
I mean, 8.75 for me. I don't know how we're gonna average between the two.
You're going to
It's
do
gonna
it,
be-
and then you're going to insert it in.
Oh, but what are they? Our audio listeners? Here, pull out your calculator, Caitlin. This is an important
Oh, my God.
thing. This is the audio listeners are going to be crying if they don't have the final score. This is very important. We have to cater to all of our audiences on all of our platforms because we are good hosts and stuff.
It's a 9.37.
All right, guys. The Cynical Cinephiles final score is a 9.37 because that is a very, very solid, easy to remember rating. Yes, 9.37.
There you go.
That's a good one. That's a good
I
one.
would like to point out that I don't think I have given anything a half or a quarter score. I always just round to the next whole number.
See, I wanted to avoid ever giving anything a quarter score, but I felt like I couldn't avoid it with this one. It was too hard for me to give it a half score. I don't know. It's just I'm so
This one's a 10.
torn. You know,
That's a 10 out of 10. I
Yeah.
don't know what to tell you.
I mean, that's fair. See, it's hard for me. It's difficult. But I mean, it's because I don't want to give it too low of a score because it really is probably my favorite musical.
Yeah.
But I also do think, I mean, like between the Broadway and the movie, there's that discrepancy, and I want to account for that. And I don't know. I'm hesitant. I'm sorry, guys.
It's a 10.
Yeah. It's a 9.37 if we're talking
for
about the
you.
Cynical's files.
I disagree.
That's
All
what
right.
they're saying. So this is the part where we pick another thing, and by we, if you haven't been to the podcast before, it means that every week we switch off. This week, technically, it was my pick for Little Shop of Horrors. Surprisingly, I know, given how much Caitlin adores it. But now it's Caitlin's turn. So, Caitlin, what is your pick? What are we doing next week?
Next episode, we are going to do Knives Out.
Hey, let's go.
Let's go.
I am very excited. You have not seen
Yes.
Knives Out.
I have not seen Knives Out.
Yes.
But my second husband is in it.
Your second husband,
Yeah.
Daniel Craig. We love him.
He's like my seventh husband. Just kidding.
Tragic.
No, Chris Evans.
Yep. We do stand.
I'm a big fan of Chris Evans.
Hell yeah.
Love him. So I really have been wanting to watch it. I've been scrolling on Twitter recently, despite my better judgment. And there's I follow a lot of like Chris Evans fan accounts, and
my
there's
God.
constantly pictures of him from Knives Out in the chunky cable knit sweater.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is enough of a reason for me to want to
Honestly,
watch it.
fair.
And Glass Onion just came out.
Yep.
Which he is not in. It's a totally separate story from my recollection.
Yes. Yeah.
And so, but I wanted to watch Glass Onion, wanted to watch Glass Onion first.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I'm so excited.
Yes.
The Knives Out films, both of them are terrific. Rian Johnson does a great job with them.
Mm-hmm.
They are very interesting takes on the kind of murder mystery kind of formula. I think you're going
love
to
it.
really like it. And I'm very excited.
Sweet.
Because there's some of my favorite movies. So.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, it's going to be good stuff.
Purred.
So, if you guys are excited for the Knives Out episode, then, come back for the next episode. That's
Yes.
usually how that works. So, yeah, all right. The music is playing because this is the end of the episode. Spotify listeners, we love you. Also, all the other audio listeners like Apple and the other ones. We don't cater to you enough, and I'm sorry about that. I love you guys though. Anyway, all right, love you guys and stuff, but not in a weird way. Actually, a little in a weird way. All right, goodbye.
Bye.